Stop! The single word exploded from Hulk Hogan's throat with the force of a thunderclap, freezing three young muggers in their tracks as they surrounded an elderly woman in the shadows of Riverside Park. The 80-year-old victim looked up through terrified eyes to see a massive figure emerging from the darkness like something out of a superhero movie. What happened in the next 4 minutes would prove that sometimes real heroes don't wear capes, they wear yellow and red. Los Angeles, California. Riverside Park, October 23, 1987. 11:15 p.m. The city that never sleeps is finally starting to quiet down, but some neighborhoods remain dangerous after dark. Hulk Hogan, at the absolute peak of his wrestling fame, has just finished a late dinner meeting with movie executives about potential film roles. Instead of taking a taxi back to his hotel, he decided to walk through the park, a decision that would change an elderly woman's life forever. The autumn air is crisp, and the park is mostly empty, except for a few late-night joggers and the occasional homeless person seeking shelter. Hulk is dressed casually in jeans and a plain black t-shirt, wearing a baseball cap pulled low over his distinctive blonde hair. He's trying to move through the world without being recognized, wanting a few minutes of normal life away from the constant attention that comes with being America's most famous wrestler. As he walks along the tree-lined path, Hulk hears something that makes his blood run cold, the voice of an elderly woman, shaky with terror, pleading with someone to leave her alone. "Please, I don't have much money," the voice says. "Just let me go home to my family." Hulk moves quickly but quietly toward the sound, using his years of athletic training to approach without being detected. What he sees when he reaches the source of the commotion fills him with a rage that has nothing to do with scripted wrestling storylines. Three young men, probably in their early 20s, have cornered an elderly African-American woman against a park bench. She's clutching a small purse to her chest while they demand she hand it over. The largest of the three is waving something metallic that catches the streetlight. A knife. "Come on, Grandma," the one with the knife says with casual cruelty. "Just give us the purse and your jewelry, and maybe we'll let you walk home tonight." The woman, who Hulk will later learn is named Dorothy Patterson, is 80 years old and was walking home from her job cleaning office buildings downtown. She works the night shift because it pays more, and she needs every extra dollar to help support her disabled grandson. The three muggers picked her because she looked like an easy target, alone, elderly, and carrying what they assumed was a purse full of cash. They had no idea they were being watched by someone who had spent his entire career pretending to fight bullies, and who was about to discover what it felt like to confront real ones. Hulk steps out of the shadows, and his voice carries all the authority he's developed from years of commanding the attention of arena crowds. "Stop!" The single word hits the three muggers like a physical force. They spin around to see a figure that looks impossibly large in the dim park lighting. 6-7 inches of muscle and righteous anger emerging from the darkness, like an avenging angel. For a moment, nobody moves. The muggers are trying to process what they're seeing, while Dorothy looks between her attackers and this unexpected savior with the kind of confusion that comes from having your worst nightmare suddenly interrupted by what might be a miracle. "Walk away," Hulk says, his voice carrying the kind of quiet menace that comes from absolute confidence. "Right now, and nobody gets hurt." The three young men look at each other uncertainly. The one with the knife, who seemed so tough when threatening an elderly woman, suddenly doesn't look nearly as confident when facing someone his own size. Except this someone is considerably larger and more muscular than anyone he's ever encountered. "Mind your own business, man," the knife wielder says, but his voice lacks the conviction it had moments earlier. "This doesn't concern you." "Wrong answer," Hulk replies, taking a step closer. That's when recognition dawns on the second mugger, a skinny kid with nervous eyes who's been staring at Hulk's face, trying to figure out why this massive stranger looks familiar. "Holy shit," he whispers, "that's Hulk Hogan." The effect is immediate and dramatic. All three muggers' expressions change from threatening to stunned to something approaching panic. They're facing the most famous wrestler in America, a man they've watched on television destroying opponents twice their size, a cultural icon who represents everything heroic about American masculinity. No way, the third mugger breathes. It's really him. Dorothy, still pressed against the park bench and clutching her purse, looks between the young criminals and her unlikely rescuer with growing amazement. She doesn't immediately recognize the name, but she understands that something fundamental has shifted in this encounter. "You boys picked the wrong night to mess with innocent people," Hulk says, taking another step forward. His presence seems to fill the entire space, making the three young men look small and foolish by comparison. The one with the knife is still trying to maintain some semblance of control over the situation, but his hand is shaking noticeably. "Look, we don't want any trouble," he says, which is exactly the opposite of what he was saying to Dorothy just moments earlier. "Too late for that," Hulk responds. "You already made trouble when you decided to threaten this lady. Now you've got two choices. Apologize to her and leave, or explain to the police why you thought it was okay to rob an elderly woman." The psychological warfare is devastatingly effective. These three young men came to the park feeling powerful and predatory, confident in their ability to intimidate someone they saw as weak and defenseless. Now they're facing someone who represents everything they're not: successful, respected, genuinely strong, rather than just willing to prey on the vulnerable. "We're sorry," the second mugger blurts out, looking directly at Dorothy. "We're really sorry. We weren't going to hurt you." "Yes, you were," Hulk says flatly. "You had a knife pointed at an 80-year-old woman. You were absolutely going to hurt her if she didn't give you what you wanted." The truth of this statement hangs in the air, undeniable and damning. Dorothy finds her voice for the first time since Hulk's arrival. "Young man," she says, looking at her rescuer with a mixture of gratitude and wonder, "I don't know who you are, but thank you for helping me." "Ma'am, you don't need to thank me," Hulk replies, his voice gentle when addressing her but still carrying edge when he looks back at the three muggers. This is what anyone should do when they see something like this, but everyone in that park knows this isn't true. Most people would have kept walking, maybe called the police from a safe distance, or convinced themselves that getting involved wasn't worth the risk. Hulk chose differently, and that choice is about to change more lives than he realizes. "We'll leave," the knife wielder says, finally lowering his weapon. "We're going." "Not so fast," Hulk says. "First, you're going to give the lady any money you have on you. Call it an apology payment for scaring her." The three young men look at each other in disbelief, but they're in no position to argue. Between the three of them, they come up with about $40 in crumpled bills, which they hand to Dorothy with obvious reluctance. "Now you're going to promise me that you'll never do anything like this again," Hulk continues. "Because if I hear about three young men matching your descriptions robbing elderly people in this area, I'm going to find you, and next time I won't be nearly this friendly." The promise is made quickly and emphatically. The three muggers practically trip over each other in their hurry to leave the park, disappearing into the night with their tails between their legs, and a story they'll probably never tell anyone because of how embarrassing it is. Hulk turns to Dorothy, who is still processing everything that just happened. "Are you hurt?" he asks. "Do you need medical attention?" "No, I'm fine," Dorothy says, though she's clearly shaken. "Just scared. I work nights cleaning offices, and I walk through this park every evening to catch my bus. Nothing like this ever happened before." "What's your name?" Hulk asks. "Dorothy Patterson. And you're that wrestler they were talking about? Hulk Hogan?" "Yes, ma'am. But tonight, I'm just Terry, and I'm going to make sure you get home safely." What happens next isn't captured by any cameras or reported in any newspapers. Hulk walks Dorothy to her bus stop, waits with her until the late-night bus arrives, and gives the driver $20 to make sure she gets home without any problems. Before she gets on the bus, he writes his personal phone number on a piece of paper and tells her to call him if she ever feels unsafe. "I mean it," he says, "day or night. If you need help, you call me." Dorothy looks at the piece of paper like it's made of gold. "Because you're not a stranger," Hulk replies. "You're someone's grandmother, someone's mother, someone who matters, and what happened to you tonight was wrong." Dorothy boards the bus, still clutching the $40 from the muggers and the piece of paper with Hulk's phone number. She waves goodbye through the window, and Hulk watches until the bus disappears around a corner. What Hulk doesn't know is that this encounter will reshape Dorothy's entire relationship with the world. For months before the mugging attempt, she had been growing increasingly afraid to walk alone at night, afraid to go to work, afraid of young men who hung around the park. But knowing that someone like Hulk Hogan, someone famous and successful and genuinely good, cared enough to help her restore her faith in humanity. The impact extends beyond just emotional comfort. Dorothy starts telling her friends and coworkers about what happened, and the story spreads through her community. Other elderly people who work night shifts begin looking out for each other more actively, inspired by the idea that there are still people willing to help when help is needed. Dorothy never calls the phone number, but she keeps it in her wallet for the rest of her life. Whenever she feels afraid or alone, she looks at that piece of paper and remembers that there are still heroes in the world, and that sometimes they appear exactly when you need them most. 5 years later, Dorothy's grandson Timothy, who has cerebral palsy and uses a wheelchair, writes a letter to Hulk Hogan. He's heard the story of how his grandmother was saved by a famous wrestler dozens of times, and he wants to say thank you. He doesn't expect a response, but he writes the letter anyway because his grandmother taught him that gratitude should always be expressed, even when you don't think anyone is listening. Hulk not only responds to Timothy's letter, but arranges for him and Dorothy to attend a wrestling match as his personal guests. He spends an hour with them backstage, talking about life, courage, and what it means to stand up for people who need help. "Your grandmother is one of the bravest people I've ever met," Hulk tells Timothy. "She kept working and taking care of you even when she was scared. That's real strength." Dorothy cries when she hears this, because in the 5 years since the park incident, no one has ever called her brave. She's seen herself as a victim, someone who needed to be rescued. But Hulk helps her understand that surviving, continuing to care for her family, and maintaining her kindness despite experiencing cruelty, that's heroism too. During that backstage meeting, Hulk quietly arranges for Dorothy to receive a monthly check that will allow her to stop working night shifts and spend more time taking care of Timothy. He tells her it's from a wrestling charity fund, but years later she'll discover that Hulk has been personally funding this assistance the entire time. The assistance continues for years, never publicized, never used for promotional purposes. Hulk checks in on Dorothy and Timothy periodically through letters and phone calls, always maintaining that he's simply following up on behalf of the charity fund. This deception is maintained purely to preserve Dorothy's dignity and ensure she doesn't feel like she's receiving charity from a celebrity. As Timothy grows up, he starts to understand the magnitude of what Hulk has done for his family. The monthly checks didn't just provide financial security. They gave Dorothy the peace of mind to focus on his special needs without constantly worrying about money. This stability during his formative years directly contributes to Timothy's academic success and eventual college graduation. The story of Hulk's rescue of Dorothy Patterson never appears in any wrestling magazine or entertainment news show. There are no photos, no interviews, no publicity campaigns built around it. It remains a private moment of heroism that exists only in the memories of the people it touched directly. Years later, when Timothy graduates from college with a degree in social work, he credits that backstage meeting with Hulk Hogan as the moment he decided to dedicate his life to helping vulnerable people. He starts a nonprofit organization that provides support services for elderly people living alone, and he names it the Dorothy Patterson Foundation in honor of his grandmother. Dorothy lives to be 95, and at her funeral, Timothy tells the story of the night a famous wrestler saved his grandmother from muggers, and then spent years quietly supporting their family. Many of the mourners have never heard this story before, because Dorothy was too humble to talk about it, and Hulk never publicized his private acts of kindness. "She taught me that heroes aren't always the people who get recognition," Timothy says in his eulogy. "Sometimes they're the 80-year-old women who keep working night shifts to support their disabled grandsons. And sometimes they're the famous people who use their power to help strangers and then never talk about it." This is the untold story of the night Hulk Hogan became a real hero in a Los Angeles park. No cameras captured it, no reporters wrote about it, no fans cheered for it. But for Dorothy Patterson and her family, it was the most important match Hulk Hogan ever won. The one where he proved that being a hero isn't about scripted victories over fake villains, but about choosing to stand up for real people when they need help most. The encounter in Riverside Park represents something profound about the nature of heroism and celebrity responsibility. In an era when famous people often seem disconnected from the struggles of ordinary citizens, Hulk's immediate and sustained response to Dorothy's crisis demonstrates what it means to use fame as a tool for genuine good, rather than just personal advancement. More importantly, it shows that real heroism happens in moments when nobody is watching, when there are no cameras rolling, when the only reward is knowing you've made someone's life better. The fact that this story remained private for decades, known only to the people directly involved, makes it more meaningful rather than less. Today, the Dorothy Patterson Foundation continues to provide services to vulnerable elderly people throughout Los Angeles, a living monument to a night when a famous wrestler proved that heroes are real, and that sometimes they appear exactly when the world needs them most.